Okay, so like almost everybody else, I have a pretty tight grocery budget. And one of the things, the rules that I set for myself is that I'm not going to spend more than $2 a pound for most meats. And that means I end up with lots of chicken that I cut up myself and a lot of ground beef. Now, it's not a problem because ground beef is so adaptable. But most recipes, unless you're making meatballs or meatloaf or something like that, call for browning it off first. And I'm going to show you how to do that. I'm going to talk about some of the different ways you can manipulate it. Alright, now, what I found on sale this morning for $1.89 was a $25.75 ground beef. And when you're buying ground beef and you see those numbers, you'll see 80-20, 93/7. What that means is the percentage of lean meat and then added fat. Because when the grocer is grinding the beef to make ground beef, oftentimes he'll add in enough additional fat to create whatever mixture he's going for. Now, needless to say, the more fat in it, the less expensive it's going to be. Mainly because when you brown the ground beef, the fat renders off and you end up losing it. So it's a trade-off. You know, you have to decide where are you going to put your dollars and what are you willing to do for it. Okay? Now, I don't mind, especially in a recipe like this. I'm about to make chili, where I'm going to brown it, get rid of all of that fat, because I'm replacing the flavor from the fat with so many other highly flavored ingredients. We're never going to miss it. So in this case, I took it a little bit cheaper. Alright, so I've got a great big, huge pot over here. You can use a skillet if you want to. I'm just going to layer in my chili stuff. And he's going to go, that's about 1.5 pounds. He's going to go right in there. And I've got it on about medium heat. Now, one of the reasons why you brown ground beef before you use it in a recipe is to get the caramelization on the outside, where it develops that nice brown crusty bits, and that is a lot of flavor. So if you have something that is very high in fat to start out with, it's going to render its own fat out, and then that's going to help caramelize what's left in here. If you've got something that's very, very lean, you may find that you need to add a shot of olive oil or a little bit of butter or whatever to your pan ahead of time, just to help get that nice crispy stuff on the outside. Now, come here just a minute. This is about the smallest amount of real estate you want to use to brown off this much ground beef. The reason is, and I'm actually going to turn that up just a little bit. The reason is, you can see, barely, we're starting to get some steam. If you've got too much crowded in a pan, it doesn't matter how much fat you've got, it's going to start releasing the moisture and the water, and you're going to end up steaming the ground beef instead of browning the ground beef. Now, if you want to do it ahead of time, freeze it and stash it somewhere, and then just pull out ready to go ground beef for a recipe, you probably don't care, and that's something that I've done quite often. It depends on what you're going to end up making with it. Now, this is going in a pot of chili. We've got tomatoes, we've got chili, we've got cumin and paprika and garlic and jalapenos and so many other intense flavors. It's not as important to me to make sure that this is just, caramelized brown as if I were making something else. Okay? Now, other trick, smush it. That's a technical term. I learned that at the Culinary Institute. While it's cooking, you do this, just mash it up. You're going to find that you've got a finer, more even texture. And if you want big chunks, go ahead and just let it do its thing and then stir it up. It's up to you. Okay, now this will probably take, 5 minutes. And I actually have some cakes that are about to come out of the oven. So what I'm going to do is walk away and let this do its thing. I'm going to stir it. I'm going to come back and I'm going to show you how much fat and liquid and everything else that renders out, and then what we do for the next step to get it ready to work with. Okay, so it's not quite finished browning, but this is exactly what I was talking about. All this liquid down here, that's a combination of water, which has come out of the meat, plus the fat that is rendering out of the meat. And you can see, all the steam, that's where we're getting rid of water. Okay? Now, this was a high-fat grind of ground beef, and so we do want to get rid of that as much as possible. Fat is flavor, and I'm all for fat. I've got no problem with fat. However, there are times when it's really not going to do anything for you, and in this case, because we're going to use it in a stew, a chili, all that fat's going to do is make the whole thing greasy. So we're going to get rid of it. And here's what we're going to do. Okay, let me grab my little towel. Over here, let me turn him down while I'm doing this. Over here, I've got just a strainer set up over a bowl. And normally, frankly, I don't do this. That depends on what I'm making. But I don't want greasy chili. I want flavorful chili. And this fat's not going to do a thing for us. So we're getting rid of him. Now, one additional step, don't let it go overboard. One additional step you can do if you really, really want to get rid of the fat, and I've taught my dad how to do this. He's got kind of a restricted diet, so we do this for him. Get extremely hot tap water, as hot as it'll go, and actually rinse it. And that will carry away the last of the fat. Like I said, it'll carry away some flavor and texture too, but in this case, there's so much else that's going to go in there on top of it that it's not really going to matter. Okay? Now, for something like a sauce bolognese, where so much of the flavor is dependent on the caramelization process ahead of time, I would do this in 2 batches, make sure it gets brown and crusty before I start working with it. But in this case, it's good to go. Okay, so here's your ground beef primer and how to brown ground beef, or ground, how much fat there is, how to get rid of it or keep it in. Starting with the basics. Yeah, I need salt, but it's not bad as it is. Okay, there you go. How to brown ground beef. If you like this video and you want more great tips, tricks, and techniques, check out the website at thrillbillygourmet.com. You can like me on Facebook under The Thrillbilly Gourmet, and you can follow me on Twitter under Jan Charles or The Thrillbilly. I'm on Pinterest now too under Jan Charles. I've also got 2 brand new podcasts, both of which you can find on iTunes. The Thrillbilly Gourmet and The Food City Kitchen on WVLT with Chef Walter Lambert and Jan Charles. Now, make sure you subscribe, and you can ask a question, you can leave a comment, and I will get back to you as soon as I can. Thanks for visiting.